Good afternoon, guys. So we're really lucky today to have experts on the field of DePIN. As it was said earlier, this is a very topical and growing field, and I hope you will find this session insightful and informative. We will address many parts of what DePIN is, from the legal, financing, technical aspects, so quite comprehensive, and hopefully you'll stay entertained and focused. So first of all, I will introduce the speakers. Well, we'll let you introduce themselves. So first, Yves.
Sure. So my name is Yves Larose. I'm the CEO and founder of the EOS Network Foundation. I'm also founder of XSAT Network, a new BTC Layer 2 solution that's got a docking layer solution that's actually quite relevant for DePIN and RWA. So I'll leave that for a little bit later.
Great. Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, Richard Liu, co-founder, co-CEO of Huma Finance. We allow companies to tokenize their receivables so that we can provide the working capital for fintech companies.
Thanks a lot. Henry?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Henry. I'm the founder and the CEO of DGFT. DGFT is a marketplace. You can call it exchange. We are a regulated marketplace for real-world assets, and we're based on the DeFi infrastructure, and we're licensed in Singapore as the first and only one so far as a regulated, decentralized platform for security tokens.
Thanks a lot. And Lillian?
Hello, everyone. This is Lillian. I come from TLA project. TLA is a DePIN project focusing on establishing the trustworthy layer for the DePIN ecosystem. So nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll kick off the panel with, I think, a question that will set the stage for the entire session, which is really about definitions. And so, first of all, I would like to ask speakers to define DePIN and RWAs, and maybe explain how decentralized physical infrastructure networks, what they are, and also how they can interact with RWA. So Lillian, do you want to give an introduction on this, and maybe touch on the publication, the report that you just published?
Yeah. Today is the DePIN day, so I think there are already many talks about DePIN, but I still want to explain from my perspective. Firstly, DePIN is a blockchain-based infrastructure network. So that means anybody can participate in. So what does it mean? It means it's public, it's global. So, and also with the equipment, with the solar panel and so on it. That means the assets on it. So the first thing that is we want to say that DePIN actually is a public asset network with many assets, global assets on it. The first point. The second point is DePIN is encouraging the global participation through the token economy. We call it POPW in a very simple word. That is, that everybody participating, the contribution is recorded on the blockchain, and they will be get rewarded by the work. So and the reward is token. Token is also recorded on the chain. So that means what? That means the business activity recorded on the chain, and the reward on the chain. That means the future income on the chain. This is the second thing. So that means the value, the asset value, the business activities, the future income is transparent, it's trustworthy on the DePIN chain. The third thing is all the data is real-time monitored. So that means the transparent is real-time transparent. And what does this data represent? It represents assets, business activities. So from this 3 points, we can see DePIN chain is actually a public asset network with asset operating here, with all the activities here, transparent, real-time. So we can see the assets, we call the assets as DePIN-based RWA assets. So this is actually different with the current digital assets and tokenized the securities different, quite different. I think many of you also attended yesterday's this conference. So there are also many talks about that. RWA. I think this is the three main points I get. One is that they think we need to introduce new asset class into it, and the characteristics should be real-time, transparent, and also tokenized because it's fractionized. So this is what I want to talk more about. That is DePIN. Actually, DePIN is eventually DePIN with RWA. Thank you.
Great. Henry, do you have anything to add on RWA, how they relate to DePIN? Since you're operating the RWA exchange or platform, do you have anything to add on this or others?
I just add on a couple of points. I think those assets on DePIN infrastructure network, these are assets, valuable assets. And these assets are related to the real economy. So I think the assets, many assets, valuable assets on the DePIN, they are RWA assets. They are real world economy assets. But the difference is compared to like a treasury bill, real estate is, those DePIN assets from the day of birth, they are in the electronic form. So they are data. They are basically data. Or you can say these are indigenous token assets without physical. It's on physical network, but they are not the physical form of assets. But that's even better. Some people call it like indigenous token assets versus those wrapped token assets. So it's more easily to be traded in a token way. So in this regard, I think DePIN assets and RWA are very much closely linked. I will stop by here.
Oh, that's interesting. Any other points that the speakers would like to make?
So I would say the connection between DePIN and RWA. Basically, you look at the last few years, RWA, through all kinds of legal and technology innovation, allow you to be able to tokenize physical assets or on-chain assets. Then you'll be able to provide all kinds of financial instrumentation for it. So for any DePIN project, requires a lot of capital in deployment, then RWA enables you to tokenize that, either using whatever those assets as backing, you can provide the capital to fund to accelerate the growth of DePIN. All those DePINs all have incomes. We can allow you to borrow against those future incomes. Then you can deploy capital faster than normal pace. So in a way, you could say RWA is more like the investor banking layer for DePIN. They together driving a lot of real-world impact and in an accelerated way.
Okay, so actually you've given me a really good segue to the next question, which is about innovative mechanisms to finance DePIN and RWA. So that's my next question. So could you please discuss some innovative financing mechanisms that DePIN offer for RWA compared to traditional methods?
Yeah.
So Henry, maybe tell us a bit about what Human Finance does and how financing comes into play.
Yeah, sure. So Human Finance, basically from get-go, we really want to build a free finance. We want to democratize financial access for the 99%. And we really want people, businesses and people around the world, be able to borrow against their future income. And in this case, DePIN is going to generate revenue, generate income in the future. If we can tokenize that, building the right mechanisms, allow people to borrow against it, you are able to, sorry about my cough, you are able to deploy capital on the DePIN project much quicker. And we not only have that vision from the get-go, we build it in that way. We build a decentralized signal processor and able to collect all kind of data. And I really like what Ninian just talked about, because in DePIN project, those signals are readily available. We can directly import it into our system, and we have our underwriting engine able to use those data, be able to do risk management in a much more effective way than many other channels.
Okay, thanks a lot. Maybe you take a breather. And are there others on the stage who are interested in discussing or bringing up some innovative mechanisms in financing? Maybe Yves, you've been a bit silent.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a completely different approach. There's a particular use case that we've been working on for years that has now come to fruition. And it's so it's a combination of DePIN and RAM. And when we tokenize this asset and when we were thinking about this asset, we weren't sure. Is it a real world asset? It is literally a real world asset. Is it DePIN? Well, it's part of a DePIN network. So it's physical RAM in block producer hardware on the EOS network. How that's different and why it's kind of a completely different approach than in the finance thing is on the EOS network, we've tokenized RAM. So it's literally the RAM in people's hardware that we've been able to tokenize. It's decentralized at the same time. And it's key to the network and it's key to our BTC layer 2 solution, XSAT network, because it enables people to actually write to that RAM. And because it's tokenized, people can physically own that RAM. People can buy that RAM. People can then think about the RAM somewhat as a plot of land. Let's say in Hong Kong, there's a limited supply. And so with the supply and demand, it operates on a predictable curve. It's an AMM. But this idea is that you're able to tokenize an asset that is real. It is completely decentralized. People can write data to it. It enables multi-layer indexing of data that then can be leveraged for, in our case, pushing full UTXO data from the blockchain, from the Bitcoin network. And so it's a completely different approach to what DePIN and RAM is. We think we're one of the first ones that has essentially gotten an actual real-world asset that is decentralized at the same time. That's got a real-world use case right now as well.
Thank you for that. Lillian, I think you want to add something.
Yeah, I want to still say something. Just as I explained that DePIN-based RWA assets has several characteristics. One is that it's transparent, real-time transparent. So generally, it will improve the financial efficiency very much. Later, I will detail it. Secondly, that is, it's because it's tokenized. So that means much more accessibility to the retails, to the individuals. The third is because it's public and global asset network, that means the finance could be globally. So comparing with the current way, most not so globally. So global infrastructure, global assets, global finance. So I think this is three main, for my side, three main advantages. Yeah, Daniel.
That's super interesting. So actually, you guys are really helping me with the questions because you're preceding my next questions all the time, which was actually going to be the value proposition and examples for DePIN and RWA. So, Yves, turning to you. Maybe you've already given some insights on RAM and value proposition, but can you tell us how it could actually change things for the user in maybe talking to a 5 years old, how it changes things for the common user?
On the RWA side or on the DePIN side?
On both. Like how can that impact our daily life? I would say, maybe making more money ourselves by being the user and revenue generating for ourselves.
So I can talk about a different use case that's actually quite relevant to Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, you've got the northern territories that are typically made available for land purchase to a few developers in Hong Kong. Land in Hong Kong is quite limited. The supply is quite limited, and there's incredibly high demand. The government controls it and ensures that there's a certain price point for real estate in Hong Kong. Historically, that's always worked out. But the amount of people that can purchase that land is quite limited in regulation And we're going to touch about legal a little bit later, and I'll maybe introduce that as well. So I'll skip this part. But generally, this idea is that this land is limited, and the Hong Kong government is trying to attract more foreign investment. And with RWA, obviously, you can tokenize assets, and in terms of real estate value, what the government is looking at doing is being able to open that so that more people from around the world, so that it's global, as you mentioned, can start making investments in real estate into Hong Kong as those northern territories are made open for developers. But in order to be able to do so, there are some challenges on the legal side because of collective investment schemes and how the regulations are currently written. But this is a real-world example where now you'd be able to get people to be able to buy into real estate. They don't need to be in Hong Kong. You can fractionalize it. We all know how expensive Hong Kong real estate it is #1 in the world. But you'd be able to buy a portion of that. You'd then be able to rent your portion of your digital asset that could generate some yield, dividends on either the taxes generated by that plot of land, your little piece of plot of land, or the building that's actually built on top of it. Perhaps that's now being rented in terms of units. You could get your portion of that. And so this idea with real-world assets, it really opens up a lot of use cases, and in Hong Kong in particular, that's one that's currently been worked on.
Okay, so that's really key, and I agree with you. Land is and real estate prices are a big issue for anybody who lives here. Richard.
Yeah, just I want to add a little bit more on the community ownership.
Okay.
So you look at the Web 2, massive innovations by large tech companies, and then because the internet penetrated the entire world, all those big companies capture so much value, but it also created the worst inequality in human history because it's totally unfair value capturing, and all the users participate in their success. But the value is purely captured by the investors, by the founders, by some of the early employees. I was beneficial. I worked for Google early days. So on the good side, but I would still say that's totally unfair. But with DePIN enabled, because otherwise those large infrastructure, average people, you and me, cannot participate. But with DePIN, everybody able to chime in and own your share. Then the entire world is no longer be hijacked by the large, big 7 in US, top 2 in China, and the entire world enables all of us to participate in building the next generation. So I feel super excited for that part. Then RWA, I mentioned earlier, can be the finance layer of DePIN project that will further increase the accessibility to average people and make the adoption curve move faster than normal.
So you would say that the value proposition, one of them would be democratization?
Correct. That's #1. #2 is, I would say, all of the added together, democratization and also better accessibility.
Yeah, I think this is very topical, right? Because right now we were seeing, as you said, in the US, in Europe as well, the fact that there's major conglomerates that are basically capturing a lot of value. This is it's a very topical issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you were saying as well at the end is that not only does it democratize access to it, but it also enables potentially further innovation, because now instead of it being centralized in the few that are essentially the gatekeepers of determining what can exist, you can now open that up to a lot of people. So potentially you can have faster capital raise, more capital raise in different areas that previously you were not able to.
Yeah, indeed. It's actually beneficial for all those platforms as well. You think about Twitter and Facebook are doing just an incredibly difficult job because they have to assess what is right, what is wrong, which is almost impossible getting right. But then when the infrastructure is decentralized, then your community can you have a mechanism. So voice in, then we collectively can make a better decision.
Great, thank you. Henry, maybe you have a high-level view of various use cases and value propositions.
Yeah, I want to have a high-value view, also want to have some practical view on that. I just want to back to the title of this panel. So unlocking the value, financial innovations. Mm-hmm. So what values are we unlocking? Mm-hmm. I agree with what Yves, Richard mentioned. Kind of a community participation, democratization, fractionalization. That's the value. I also would want to add on is, DePIN assets is an alternative asset, which is not popular now. It's the power of the data generated values and also record in a very innovation way. So that's the values of so-called the DePIN assets. I just want to focus on the so-called the data value. It is, by nature, it is already the data. So that's the value we are realizing, but it's early stage. Then coming to which kind of innovations, especially the financial innovations, we can realize these values, to capture these values. Richard mentioned is RWA can add on, enable the financial value of those assets. I totally agree. I want to build on that is based on this database assets, there are some interesting things we can further develop. For example, we talk about the the so-called tokenomics. Tokenomics. So not just in a 1% of a building, not just in a 5% from a treasury bill, so-called the fixed income, etc. The tokenomics thing can be much better implemented to those data original or indigenous data assets. We see some DePIN projects when they so-called listing their tokens. They talk about not just only one token, they talk about dual token or even 3 triple token kind of structure. Some token represented the beneficial owner of the underlying assets. Mm-hmm. Another token represent a value of the community, so-called a utility token. So both are actually complement to each other. So one is very much financial assets, heavily regulated, but this kind of community token are less regulated or better not to be regulated. Better not to be regulated because for voting, blah, blah, but they do have values. Then through the tokenomics, through some platform like DGFT, token-based platform and others, you can give the owner or the investor of DePIN assets or DePIN projects multiple benefits through different tokens. So that's tokenomics. Of course, the way is airdrop, etc., very efficient, very cheap. So this kind of tokenomics, I think can add much value and much color or much fun to the current pretty boring just equity token, fixed income token, or collective investment scheme token. So that's how we see the so-called financial innovations probably we should explore.
So it's a value proposition also in the stickiness on the user adoption. It's
you are right. That can create the stickiness and also can create like an additional, one of the stickiness is a financial incentive, right? Mm-hmm. So you not only expect like a 5%, 10% about the organic growth of the physical network, you can also get some extra bonus through the ownership of the community. Then make you can call the stickiness or attractiveness of those assets beyond the normal financial assets.
Right, and I think this is very key, right, for any technologist, for you who are technologists and who are looking at market entry, what is actually, how you can actually cross the chasm, how you can get those users that are more than the native users to adopt, like that actually is very, very helpful, very important. So Lilian, yeah.
I also want one thing. Yes, I fully agree that the DePIN-based RWA will increase the benefit the global investment. And at the same time, I want to detail more on the fundamental maybe change about the asset-backed finance mode. Yeah, because you know that for the financing, the most important aspects are what? Asset valuation, asset risk control, and also who is the asset's owner, right? So all the things could be much easier and also transparent, clear on the DePIN. Yeah, because just we talked that the ownership of the assets is quite clear on the chain. The second is because the DePIN token also represents the value, the future income. So that could be quite transparent and real time. to you, right?
Of course.
Yes, right? So we could provide to you, right? Then also the risk management. So for currently, in traditional way, it's not possible to control, to monitor the assets real time. No, cannot. But this is quite important for risk control. So we could do it from the DePIN chain. So we could also give the finance. So that is the financial mode. I mean, the fundamental aspects could be improved, quite much improved. So what will benefit? That means it could change many services. For example, the lending. The lending could be much, much more faster or cheaper. We cooperate with you, right? And also it could be good to create a decentralized trading platform. So, for example, we have multiple DePIN chain projects. So, for example, there is solar panel, right? So we could create a trading platform, furnish the solar panels, and everybody could come to invest, lend for them, and also they could back the stable coins. So I think there could be very much potential for the financial innovation, right?
Okay, so those are actually very, I would say, ambitious goals, and but very realistic. But then there is always the technical aspect. So that's what I want to ask you guys is about the technical challenges and solutions that you're seeing for the integration of DePIN and RWA. How can it be addressed? I guess that maybe since we don't have that much time, maybe can you highlight the biggest challenges there are as compared to what we've seen in the past? Yves, you want to start?
I guess I'll go back to the panel title as well, Unlocking the Value, Integrating DePIN and RWA for Financial Innovation. Right now, one thing that probably binds everybody in this room and on this stage is Bitcoin. And especially with the recent ETF approvals and now Hong Kong working on this as well, there's tremendous value in Bitcoin that is still left to be unlocked. The majority of people that come through and participate in crypto, majority of them will come through the Bitcoin doors. And right now, unfortunately, a lot of the assets that are on Bitcoin are somewhat stuck there. So you're talking about, for example, DeFi. You're talking about unlocking a lot of the value that's found in an asset. We've got a shared common problem. There's a lot of value in Bitcoin, and it's stuck there. Bitcoin as a network can't really interact with smart contracts. I'll get some flack for saying that, but there are ways of doing it right now primarily that are off-chain. And so going back to the technical challenges, one of the things that we see are, as a technical challenge, are trustless bridges or mechanisms, hybrid consensus mechanisms to be able to unlock that value that's found on Bitcoin, but in a decentralized way that is quite transparent. And so this is one of the challenges that we're working on right now, is to be able to create the technical components that are completely trustless, that are decentralized, that are transparent, but that are also scalable. And that is a big challenge, I think, that a lot of BTC L2 solutions are currently working on through various mechanisms. Of course, we had a lot of innovation on the Ethereum front with that, but now we're seeing quite a shift in the industry to try to unlock that value that's currently found on Bitcoin, especially as more and more capital is entering the system, but that value is being stuck there. I mean, you've got tremendous amount of capital that just entered even in just the last few months, but because it's in a traditional system, it's stuck there, so you can't do anything with it. And I think this is where RWA and DePIN will be able to come and help as well.
So would you say that right now, Bitcoin is like gold, and it's just stuck in a vault?
Can't really do anything with it, right? So, yeah. I mean, they're either it's on a centralized exchange and you're able to get yield with it, but you can't really fractionalize that asset or take that asset and being able to leverage it as collateral for something else. You would need to exit the system to go somewhere else. So we've got huge amount of fractionalized networks, huge amount of fractionalized assets and liquidity, essentially, that's just there for the taking. But technically, we've not been able to close those gaps in a decentralized, transparent way yet.
So if you address this challenge and find a solution, then I would think the price of Bitcoin will even more.
That's what we're working on.
Okay. Just, I think, food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, I would say number one difficulty is how do you secure the asset? The DePIN assets is owned by different people. You look at all the RWA industry in the last few years, it's really figured out a lot of all kinds of structures to allow the investors to really have a claim on the underlying assets. But for DePIN, that is a new layer of challenge that we all have to work in together. That's number one. Number two, which I have to just do a little bit of plug for human finance. Right? Most of the RWA protocol or DeFi protocols, actually they are not ready to accept all kinds of detailed data that DePIN has. And from that perspective, I would expect the industry, because a lot of those guys build purely from financial system perspective, not from system perspective. And for us, from the get-go, we build our architecture in that we were able to attract all kinds of data pipeline, but I think we have a head start to work with all the DePIN platforms to be the financial layer for them. But meanwhile, I expect the industry actually requires other people needs to do more catch up to build the infrastructure to be able to tie these two together.
Thank you for that, Henry.
Yeah. I would say if we link the DePIN assets to financial assets, because it's financial innovation, right? To discover, capture the financial value of it, then the ownership is very important. So that the clarity and the certainty of ownership of the assets is important. Otherwise, the people don't know you own 10, then come out become 15, right? So that's because it's a new asset class, a lot of potential, but at the early stage, there's no consensus about so-called the standard, the boundary. Because financial, the ownership, the boundary is very, very important. That's a certainty, the ownership. Otherwise, people cannot price it rightly. Something is related to the regulation, etc. I hope technology can help to address this clarity and the certainty of ownership. That would be a game changer.
Okay. Thanks for that. I'd like to maybe ask another question on that theme of technical challenges, which is AI. So in the previous presentation, there was this link between blockchain, DePIN, and AI. Do you see that actually being a possible solution, like using AI to organize data, to make it more efficient, more trustworthy? I see you nodding. Is this a yes?
I was like pointing to somebody else, maybe, because I'm not sure I can answer that one.
Yeah. I can speak a little bit. I would say my first angle is different from your question. I think the first one is that everybody needs to own AI. Otherwise, it will be owned by the large companies. DePIN comes in with the AI infrastructure, which we are already engaged with a few projects, talk about how to finance those projects, so that we all can contribute to owning the next generation AI infrastructure. I think that is way more important than how AI is used for no matter RWA, underwriting, risk management. You can imagine that. Or in the DePIN side, especially how you build a lot of those cloud infrastructure projects, you make it decentralized. There are definitely a lot of AI applications there.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this one. I mean, Richard, I just want to echo your point is when we say AI, we're using AI as a tool or AI as a capacity. We use AI for solve different real-world issues, especially generative AI, blah, blah. But linking AI to the physical network is what's the resource in AI? For example, the AI computing power. That become a power like how many engines do you have in the kind of industry innovation, kind of a 2.0, 3.0. Now is how much the AI computing power can you share, can you contribute? That's very typical physical network for the data. Then if we're using that one, so-called the physical network, DePIN is helium as a case for communication, now coming to the AI, I think it's a perfect use case. And for us, since it's have a very quick and big adoption, so it's a perfect use case. We can save a lot of market education to tell the people what is a use case of a DePIN. I'm very excited about that one.
Thank you. One last question, regulatory and legal. This is something you have broached on several occasions. It is a real challenge. We don't have that much time, so maybe very quickly, each of you, would you have like some key challenges about regulatory that you're seeing in Hong Kong or Singapore that we need to keep in mind for this field of RWA and DePIN to grow?
I might leave the challenges for somebody else, but I guess I'll kick it off with what I'm seeing in terms of trends as of last year. A lot of legislative bodies around the world are trying to innovate. After COVID, global finance change, there's a lot of challenges. And one of the things that we started noticing about maybe June or so last year, so last half of last year, was that regulating bodies around the world are stuck. They're trying to grow their economies. They're trying to adapt to what's coming and kind of what happened after COVID. And in part, their regulations have just not kept up. And the technology, especially because of COVID, it was kind of a free CTO for every company around the world, where now suddenly everybody had to adapt and move forward from a tech point of view, and now the regulations haven't adapted. And one thing that we've seen, or that I've seen in particular, is that areas around the world are having to change their own regulations in order to be able to innovate. And what's really exciting about that is that when industry tries to change regulations, that's a very lengthy process. It can take, depending on where you are, it can take up to, let's say, 36 months, 48 months. But when the governments themselves, when the regulatory bodies themselves need to change their own regulations in order to be able to adapt, they can shorten that time span. So we see this in Hong Kong right now with the ETFs. We see it with the licensing with the VASP. They've shortened that time frame from, let's say, 36 months down to 8 to 12 months, maybe 18 months. And so it's less about the challenges, more about what I'm seeing right now is less challenges. People are having to adapt, otherwise they're falling behind.
Thanks for that. Henry, you have the experience of Singapore and now Hong Kong, so that's particularly interesting perspective.
Yeah, talking about Singapore, Hong Kong, right? Generally speaking, I think both are very good in terms of we're talking about supporting innovations. As simple as that, as Eve mentioned. If you ask me the question about what's the risk and the challenge, I will say two sides. One side, from the regulator perspective, should support and embrace innovations, because the regulations are always behind innovation. That's the natural. So regulator perspective, they should more and more open to encourage that. From the other side is industry side. I just want to encourage the responsible innovations. Do innovation, but in a responsible way. Then have the better, easy, maybe handshaking between the control and the innovation. And in this regard, I would say Singapore, Hong Kong, among many other countries, are more front running in terms of leading this kind of supporting innovation, promoting innovation, and attracting innovation. But of course, there are many things that can be done in Hong Kong and Singapore, although it is relatively leading, but it's just relatively leading. It's just the early stage to support this new big thing.
Thank you. So we don't have much time left, but maybe one, like a less word, like future of RWA. Richard, like, what do you think is the next big thing that will be coming in this space?
I think really RWA and DePIN is a very interesting marriage. And DePIN drive the world forward for all of us on the future. And then RWA being a financial accelerator of it.
Okay, great. Lillian, maybe?
I think DePIN and RWA will create a new mode for physical structures construction, investment finance.
Thank you. Right on the spot, right on the dot. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Hopefully you found that insightful. And feel free to ask us questions after the panel.